Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Hamstra as the Orc Countess Ida and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
You find yourselves in Nimbus Station, the home seemingly of the now dead storm giants. You've managed to find 4 control stations in 4 buildings surrounding the central hall, where you've found a dinner party of dead guests and a long unfinished feast. Having killed Sylvia Tome, the science gnome, for her sins and her crimes against the dwarves of Mountigrout, Stabbo, and also you guys, you now have free reign of Nimbus Station. The rain, lightning, and storms continue to roar beneath you, but up here it is calm, peaceful, and unnaturally quiet. What do you do?
Makka's interested in heading back to find the control room, so he'd be looking basically for that point in the trail where it showed that Sylvia kind of veered.
Yeah, the lightning bolt house, the other houses. Yeah.
So you return to the lightning bolt house, for lack of a better term, and you can see why she veered back. The station itself is essentially just a almost a large. You can think like a security room in terms of just like large sort of circular viewports of various places within the valley, and a massive sort of control console. With a chair, and there's a few kind of like tables and things off to the side, but there's absolutely no cover. If you were going to try and lure anyone into a trap, this would be a very dumb place to do it. But inside there is, you find that the screens are just idly showing storms. They seem to be made of shimmering liquid, so sort of large, almost large pools on the wall, encased in that same sort of gilt gold you saw down below in Spiros. And otherwise, large control console. The control console is not lit up. It is, in fact, completely dark and sort of devoid of energy, but it's kind of hard to see what's going on from here. What do you do?
Ida would basically look all around the console, see why there's no power, if there's literally just like something needs to be plugged in.
Sure. All right, so you hoist yourself up. It takes a little while. You have to climb the chair and then kind of make your way up, but with some difficulty.
Makka's going to cast guidance on Ida as well.
Sure. Oh, nice. Thank you.
All right.
Add a D4 to your ability check.
Ida, do you want to roll me an investigation check, please?
For sure. It's 11 plus 6 is 17 plus 4, 21.
21.
Wait, not 1 D4.
A D4.
That was a 2. 19.
You begin to explore the panels, and you can kind of math out what these consoles do. They seem to be kind of directly related to the level of electrical interference in the storms. At a quick glance, you can see there's kind of like volume, timing, all those sorts of things are widely available. They're all cranked up to maximum. And again, there's no power running through it. Upon closer inspection with the 19, you're able to determine that there are several ports sort of throughout that are, to your eye, kind of probably, what's the size we're looking for here? Probably almost like a watermelon sized, so like kind of a large-ish object. There's several ports that seem to be empty, that have slots for things that seem to be that size. Looking closely, you can actually see there's sort of scuff marks and dents, similar to what you'd expect from like a crowbar or a similar device.
Is that just around the ports, or is that over like the whole thing?
Just around the ports. Everything else seems to be relatively pristine, despite being cranked up to maximum.
Okay, and I don't see anything that would like go into these ports.
You do not.
Around. Does it seem to look like, or would those be too small, the cables that were holding up the guy, Crystalline?
Definitely bigger than the cables holding up the Crystalline man. Those were probably, I think, like a forearm size. So not small, but not.
Yeah.
This is quite the size.
Duncan, Makka, there seems to be missing inputs.
Who else do we know has been up here on the scale of things? Obviously, everyone's been poisoned for some fucking reason. Did Kudo say what happened with Danno? He just says, clenching a fist really tightly.
He spoke only of a betrayal. A deception.
Did Danno come up here?
Yes, he did.
Did Danno go back down?
Kudo did not mention Danno returning.
Well, then he fucking didn't. I'm betting he's in the goddamn palace, whatever the fuck that is. You know, we're on the main path, and then we veered over here. Then we went to the weird sniper place, and now we're back here. I'm wondering if they've got some kind of leadership place, if that's where Danno's hiding, because we haven't seen his body anywhere, have we?
How old is the story, the legend of Danno?
Hundreds
of years. Too long for any of this to make sense to me, but fuck it, the giants are still here, and I don't think he did that last week.
From what I know of how a body decomposes, how long have these giants been dead?
Hundreds of years. They're almost mummified from exposure. So it does track with the timeline of the Dawnbreakers.
These giants were felled centuries ago.
And how long has the weather been not working right?
I think we can agree on that front. We all have the same amount of information. Question mark. Why don't we check a second one of these, because there's the one with the other thing on the roof next door. If it's also been jacked, then I vote we go to whatever their central palace is and see what we can find. Does that make sense to the two of you?
Peter, do you know what you require for this to function?
Honestly, not specifically, but it would be something that is about this size. And she basically motions with her hands that will fit into a socket of some sort. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Not like an electrical socket, but like a...
But, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imagining like a guitar, like an instrument plug. Is that kind of what it is?
Looks a little bit like that, yeah. Yeah.
All right, we'll keep an eye out while we sort this, I guess.
All right, so I assume you just kind of go probably north, since that's the area you have the least line of sight on. The central piece is the sniper, like, great hall.
Yeah. Was there like if we checked this second place, which I think we would have done, do we see the same kind of equipment with the same kind of problem?
Yeah, so you go, you make your way north to the Rain building. Once you get past the great hall, you can see not quite a palace, but definitely like what looks to be the fanciest building of the bunch, kind of in the northmost point. It almost seems like an observation post, ironically enough, overlooking kind of at the absolute height. You realize you're kind of walking on an incline, so it almost seems like that's the highest point of all this. But first, you go to the Rain station. And you find roughly the same thing. Do you want to roll an investigation check to see if you can gather any more intel?
Duncan would have to trust Ida because he...
Yeah.
Yep.
This would be the same as finding a glowing portal. He's not a guy who can help.
Guidance.
Boop. Ooh, thank you. A 21 again.
21. Yeah, same kind of damage. Similar, like it's clearly been forced. However, you do find in this one some blue dust.
Blue.
It is the same color as a certain crystalline man you've met.
Blue. Indeed.
What did you find? He yells from far away because everything's big.
There is blue dust. It matches Crystal Man. Kudo? Kudo?
His name is Kudo.
Yes.
Yes, he
And
says
it's the same
Kudo.
color.
Well,
I don't know what that means. It could be a coincidence. Perhaps there is something crystalline missing. Perhaps.
The moment she says it could be a coincidence, Duncan is taking a walk outside to just like have a breather. Because this is his expert. This is the only one who can explain it. And we're starting from things that form a pattern or a coincidence. So he's going to just do a little lap just outside.
I do not want to find meaning where there is none just because it would be convenient.
He can't hear you, and that's good.
Makka says,
do we require Kudo's presence here?
He may be able to help.
I do not know if he can be moved.
You do recall in your conversation with him that as long as the Eternal Storm is running, he cannot leave.
Okay, so yeah, Makka mentions that.
Is there another like him up here?
Perhaps.
Is there any of that dust elsewhere?
Tom, have I seen anything?
You've only seen this in the two. If you check the other two, you find a little bit more. But they're all in roughly the same shape. So clearly someone has stolen the power supplies by force, and they seem to match Kudo.
If I were to hypothesize, perhaps there are crystals that are meant to be, as it were, plugged in to these consoles, and they are missing. That would be my guess.
We must begin our search.
Unless there are crystalline people who are plugged in. That makes less sense, though, on an ongoing upkeep and just general maintenance of the city. I'm not sure. Yes, let us keep going.
Makka will exit to find Duncan and say,
we are looking for crystals, similar in quality to those we saw growing out of Kudo.
Yeah, the same blue. Got it.
They are not in there. We must search elsewhere.
Nailed it. Ready.
This palace you are seeking. Shall we start there?
If I was a crooked scumbag poisoning a nation to look after myself, yeah, that's where I'd go.
So as you approach it, you get the sense that it is it's a smallish building. It's likely like a throne is probably in there. It's not necessarily like a palace, but it's definitely kind of a big important kind of seat of power. And as you approach, you see that there are several giants who have died kind of on the rampway up to the door. The central door is closed, and you can see kind of long, deep, like claw marks across the door where they tried to get in before they died.
Are there any other obvious ways in, Tom? Are we seeing any windows? Or
yeah, there's like high windows that, again, it'll be a bit of a climb, but you guys are in no rush at this point, so you can make your way up, but too small for any of the giants to fit through, certainly.
Yeah, if we can do it safely, because I don't think climbing is any of our strong suit, but we've got batons and
you have
ropes
the time, so you can just like slowly make your way up. Once you reach the window, after a heavy climb, inside you can see essentially a greeting hall. There is sort of a throne. There's some tables. It seems like an administrative space. There also appear to be, from up here, you can see the ceiling doesn't. It's got those rooms that don't have a ceiling that reaches, or a wall that reaches all the way to the ceiling. And there seem to be bedrooms and kind of a few administrative offices. It kind of seems like an admin office, but also you can see that from up here there is a room that has a tiny bed set up on a large bed. And you're kind of doing the Assassin's Creed thing where you're just kind of like moving along through the rafters. But perhaps most significantly, you can see a small, unmoving figure seated on the throne.
Duncan would want to like rope down to that because that's the big old question.
Great. So you descend down, and as you kind of rope down, you can see empty barrels everywhere. You can see crates with the Danno logo on them. There seems to be like essentially like what you can probably tell from here is a pitch board set up with like a variety of intriguing opportunities that has kind of yellowed and faded with time. But landing on the throne, you do in fact look down on a pair of old, very badly dented and grayed coppers on the wrists of the long dead corpse of Danno the Mystic. Behind him on the throne, he's kind of slumped there, not in a particularly regal way. He is clutching a goblet, but there's also a dagger next to him on the ground, and in a shaky, crusted brown script, he seems to have written something on the throne behind him. So looking down at the body of your namesake, what kind of runs through your head before you read it? Because obviously I know that would be your next port of call. But imagine this is a pretty big moment for Duncan.
Yeah, I think he's at a loss. Like rarely is he at a loss looking at the evidence that all clearly adds up to one thing, but he's desperately hoping that something will give this context. Like there is a meaning here he's missing. There's got to be something. And he's got that weird, unhealthy hope, I think, when he goes to read what's written, that it will make all of this make sense.
Ita and Makka, what are you doing?
Makka's looking for crystals.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Ita would kind of very unceremoniously just kind of like look at the corpse, check around, make sure it wasn't like some undead weird thing.
Yeah.
And then continue looking around.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of like a thin, small corpse. Not quite gnome sized, but clearly kind of a short fellow. Wearing what would have been like at this point a fairly recognizable House of Danno vest. Over with seemingly a cloak of some sort that still maintains a bit of kind of a crimson sheen. You get the sense that it, and you've seen this certainly in a lot of the artwork of kind of Danno the Mystic. We're talking like classic D&D cartoon DM, like wizard robe.
Okay.
But even like aside from the weathers of time, up close, like patched, stained. It's had a bunch of pockets badly sewn into the inside. There's like he put like cargo pockets on the outside at some point. Like it's really looking very, very rough and very old. Makka, as you begin to search, you do in fact find some crystals in a lockbox under one of the beds. You eventually find kind of that this is the person known as the Energy Keeper. Their chamber, and similar to finding fuses, you find a number of these crystals. You're one shy of what you would need to repower all the systems, But you do find some. They're faded. They don't look as potent as like they're clearly the kind of worn and used ones. Some of them are chipped, but you feel like they'd be enough to partially power the systems up. At least partially, which is certainly better than nothing. Duncan, you look down at the body and the coppers that, of course, you hold in such high esteem, and even from here you can see that they're these look to be the real thing. They're old and they're badly kept, but they do look to be legit, unlike the coppers that you know from Orville. And looking down at kind of this body, your eyes kind of cast upward, and you begin to read the confession of Danno the Mystic. It begins, I should be clear, I'm a fraud. Now, that's not a word that a lot of people put a lot of stock in. It's not something a lot of people are too concerned about, but it's a word that's haunted me for quite some time. I want to be clear, frauds aren't useless, and neither was I. I played my part, and I helped. I saved Hamala and her Dawnbreakers time and time again. And yeah, sure, I didn't have, and there are quotes very sarcastically dragged onto the wall, magic, as some might say, but I knew what we needed and when we did, and that's just as good. Elos didn't think so. Neither did Amala at the end, so they gave me the boot. And look, I'll admit it, I've done wrong by a lot of people. I've sold potions, schemes, tonics, everything I could. And I tried, to help where I could, but it's hard when you don't have any skills, you don't have any powers. But I thought maybe I could do some good here. I heard that it was the storm was roaring and no one seemed to care. No one seemed to come. So I figured I could come. And yeah, okay, sure. First I tried to sell potions to people who were stuck here. Who wouldn't? There's profit to be made, right? But I got to thinking and reading. Mala always said reading is the greatest power. I think because she couldn't, So I got to reading and I realized that none of this was natural. We didn't even know about the storm giants. We didn't know about their stations. We sure as hell didn't know that they were controlling places like this. There's a few others, too, but, I reckon I got a little bit more blood left in me, and the poison's working pretty quick, so won't be long. I came here trying to broker peace. Storm giants got tired of our bullshit around the War of the Necrotis, and the folks here at Nimbus, they just kind of gave up on us. But I thought, hey, maybe I could do some good. So I came here and I brought them gifts. I've been trying my hand at wine. It's bad. It's not poison bad, but it's bad. But it is still booze, and I thought maybe they'd like some. So me and my trusted pupil Kudo, we came here. Look, I don't know if it's just something with the wine or something more insidious, but every single person who drank it died. I tend not to taste my own wares, but they demanded a cheers, and I indulged them. And here I am. They're calling for my blood outside. Won't be long before they break down the door, I think. But I tried to turn it around here at the end. I tried to teach Kudo and the other House of Danno. I think House of Danno is the one I'm going to settle on, if that matters. Tried to teach them how to be better, how to do good. And sure, turn a profit, but mostly do good. Anyway, I think... Oh, yeah, I think it's happening. So this is a fraud saying I may not have been much, but I was a Dawnbreaker. And I did try and help people at the end. You know, I used to joke that I would bleed for Crown and Code because I'd get my ass kicked a lot when we were fighting people. But in the end, I tried to bleed for good. And that's all he's written.
I think Duncan steps back. Realistically, a tear would roll down his face. That feels like very Duncanish in this moment. And he would... So we got the bed, we got the body. We don't really have a way to get rid of it. He would take off his coppers and trade them for the ones on the body. Mm-hmm. Because to Duncan, this is a flawed man trying to do the right thing, and that's admirable in and of itself. And Duncan would take a knee silently to himself and just swear an oath. I got to add this to his oath list. But swear a legitimate oath that he would redeem the name of Danno. Because Danno clearly wasn't the betrayer in this instance, but he was the betrayed. And that means justice has not been done. And that sits wrong with Duncan Danno. So the name remains. A new oath has been sworn. And when he redeems the name, he can return the coppers. But until then, he wears the old banged up coppers as proof of the oath.
Cool.
Makka will return, holding crystals enough to get us somewhere, but declares that we are one short. Probably brings that to Ida's attention.
Do you think we could take one of Kudo's crystals?
I do not know what that would do to him.
Did we not find enough? What happened? I've been kind of doing my own thing.
There is enough here to fill all of the empty sockets but one. Ida, is there not a way to make it work anyway without it?
Perhaps. Tom, are the sockets like labeled anyway as to like what they do?
No, the best way to think of this is literally like batteries. Like they're just slots where you would put in batteries.
And we've got like lightning, rain,
wind, and cloud.
Cloud. I mean, perhaps we focus on lightning, rain, and wind for now. Cloud is a little more innocuous, perhaps. I don't know.
We could invite the dwarves up to explore these areas. Duncan's still a little shaken. He's just coming out of it as he has this conversation, doing that like rubbing eyes thing, not quite ready to share that he had any of the feelings or oath that he had, but coming out of it, he's like, we could invite the dwarves up here to try to solve this, perhaps, see what they could do. If there is a way to save the Ashlands, we haven't seen any directly malicious dwarves in this party. Perhaps Nev would be willing to supervise, keep things safe.
You could safely plug these in now before summoning anyone if you want to at least see what it would do.
I think what we were saying was dealing with everything except Cloud, and then like dwarves can deal with Cloud is where Duncan meant it coming from.
So, all good. So you do plug everything in.
Turning everything down first.
Plug
it in on max.
Unfortunately, there's no response from the dials. You move them, but nothing happens. All of the crystals are blinking, but not operational. Ida, I think you would understand this. It's a circuit. Without the full circuit being closed, none of the systems will power. You're basically in like standby mode, where it's like, waiting for input, but it can't operate without the remaining crystal.
And it would seem we do indeed need to break a piece of crystal off of Kudo. This may kill him.
We could search the rest of this place. The storms down there are not something that needs to be solved this moment. Risking a life to solve this problem does not seem just.
Oh, certainly.
But these phenomena, they bring the types of minds seeking glory, the Sylvia tombs of the world.
I mean, yes, but we can't kill a man to make them not come.
And I do not believe that we should destroy this. Could be too beneficial.
It may be a decision Kudo himself would like to be a part of.
Yes,
That I
perhaps.
cannot refuse.
A man living a life in that fashion for that long may have died some time ago.
Then let's go speak with him.
Did you want to investigate first to see if there are any remaining crystals? Ida, you'd mentioned that. I'll let you do that for an investigation check.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to do.
Okay.
Scour the area. If we're not pressed for time.
It's a cursory look. Like you're not,
Yeah, we don't have time to take apart a
tapping on panels, but
I think can Duncan attempt assist? What would you like, Tom?
You can assist if you want.
Okay, investigation, right?
Yep. So
guidance.
So take guidance and
1. Doesn't matter.
You have
1.
inspiration from.
She rolled a nat 1.
Yes, we get to roll twice because you're being assisted.
Inspiration.
Duncan is assisting, so you can roll twice and pick the better result.
Ah, that's nice. Second nat 1.
You do not find any crystals, nor do you investigate too much before you become exhausted. This place is very large, and you fought a bunch of things. So you now have exhaustion, level 1, and you realize
Cocaine wore off.
Yeah, you realize that searching this whole place is going to be a complete impossibility unless you want to spend a tremendous amount of time. But also, like, an amount of time that Duncan, I think, would make you feel uncomfortable being away from Gwendolyn, because who knows what she's been up to.
There is still a war on. Like, he can't spend weeks and weeks here. So, yeah, I think it's time to ride that silver egg back down.
Great. So you pile back in and travel back downward. Now, kind of making sense of the barrel. Can all of you roll me a perception check, please?
12.
Nat 20.
Ooh.
I mean,
fair enough. Duncan, as you're lost to your thoughts, kind of observing the barrel and the poisoned wine and everything else, your eyes alight on the 2 champagne glasses and the bottle of champagne.
Interesting. He'll pick up the bottle of champagne and see what he can see with this business.
It's definitely Danno brand, but it's different than the wine. It's got the D with the 2 underlines. It's like an older vintage. But it seems to be from Danno's stores.
I'm too stupid to know if I'm supposed to be getting something, but I'm fascinated by it.
Okay. You arrive back down at the Spiros Observatory. The doors hiss open, and you find yourselves in the room again. You hear like some clattering, as clearly Chris and Jill are trying to like get out of their bonds, but are too well tied. So it's a lot of like fumbling around and not doing great. Duncan, you of course are slightly frustrated by this. You place the bottle back in the cooler, like the little cooling unit, and just as you step out, with your nat 20, I feel like I have to give you this rather than just hinting at it obliquely. You notice the 2 glasses. With that, you step out into the observatory. And yes, Chris and Jill are not getting free. They are just trying to get free, and they are bad at it. So you make your way down into the central area. Again, Kudo is floating there. And he says, Makka, you have returned.
Yes, Kudo. I have brought my friend, Duncan, Kin Danno.
No!
Greetings. So what do you know of the Nimbus Station?
It is where the Thunderers reside. They who control the storms. My old master sought their power above.
And you said that there was something we should not do up there, for we travelled up in the conveyance, but we took only a few steps and looked about before returning, wanting to make sure. Makka had said you had wisdom in this regard of some kind.
Yes, this is good. It is dangerous, a place of death. But also the only... no. I remained here where my old master betrayed me, made me this. And he flails his hand and foot generally at his crystalline body.
How could he have done this to you? The magics involved be monstrous.
He was the mystic. You of all should know that, Kin Danno.
Just a moment, friend. Let us strategize. And he'd like to wave the other two over to where, just somewhere where Kudo can't hear, and be like, this doesn't smell right. I'm going to be honest with you both. There were 2 champagne glasses in that traveling case, which does not make sense with the betrayal. And Danno left a note saying he was a fraud and had never had any magic, so he could not turn anyone into a pile of crystals. And he'd left his message inside the castle where no one could get. And we were told not to explore up there by this man.
Yes. Yes, those were his words.
And the crystals growing off of him match the crystals that were stolen.
Yes.
I have a strong suspicion that Kudo was the one involved with the poisoning of the Danno wine, that Kudo was the one who took the crystal, and that Kudo's interaction with the crystal is what changed his form. He may have been left behind by someone else. There were 2 glasses there, and Danno clearly did not come back.
A moment. Kudo claims he did not ascend. How does he know of the mass deaths above?
So Kudo lies.
I did not see it at first. I apologize.
None of us saw it at first. We needed greater evidence. Interesting.
Ita, what do you make of this story, given our findings above?
There is a logic to it. And although I am not one to see patterns such as this, we have been lied to quite a bit in the regard of this place. It would not surprise me that yet another one who seemingly has good intentions has also lied.
Duncan will reapproach the glass and just say, Kudo, I did not tell you the entire truth, my friend, for which I apologize. For we did journey further throughout the realm above. And he'll raise one of the coppers of Danno's and just rest it against the glass and say, and I read the last note of Danno the Betrayed. And I see you coated in crystals that match the crystals that are missing. And I know someone poisoned the Danno wine. And I know that they rode back down and that they had a conspirator. What happened to you, Kudo, and who did it? We can get you justice the same way we will for Danno, for he had no magic and he could curse you not as this.
It was another of our group. Perhaps you saw him in your journeys. He would have escaped. He was wearing a vest. His name was Jeremiah. He was jealous of me, for I was the pupil.
Jeremiah.
I want to roll an insight check there, bud?
Yeah.
All of you can if you want.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kudo
I mean,
lying.
I got to guess with that one, but I'll try. Yeah, all right. Jeremiah.
I got a nat
insight.
20.
I mean, yeah,
I got less than that.
You found some people outside.
I'm going to write
They're
down
all-
my guess, and then let's see what gets found.
Found a bunch of people outside, and they were all dead. So no, you think this is bullshit. Ryan, what's your fantabulous guess?
I mean, I rolled a 10, so I didn't score brilliantly as Duncan, but
This is just for like if Duncan
Yeah.
can be certain of what he's
great.
of what he suspects. You can still have those suspicions. Like the dice won't remove your thoughts. They'll just you don't have 100% confirmation.
What species was Jeremiah?
He was a human, like me, like Danno. Outcasts we were, not from the human pen of Orwell, but others who had been in service longer down here, on the down below.
No, I don't know this. Why did you...
You
Sorry, go
have
for it.
not seen a human corpse wearing a Danno vest.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that. I like look over to Makka and be like, I really thought it might be Bleep. I thought there might be a familiar that was hanging out with him, which, fuck, that would have been convenient.
He hears that and he says, "The master's familiar lives."
Yes, he's learning to be a doctor and does not remember his tale of origin.
Oh, at least one of us escaped from Danno the betrayer.
Ugh. He's just like rubbing his head, being like, so you and your co-conspirator betrayed Danno, and then
No, I did not betray Danno. I was betrayed by Danno and by Jeremiah before he escaped.
Makka's gonna try something here and say,
Kudo, you instructed us to only go to the control room and
Yes.
to turn off the device controlling the storms, yes?
Yes.
We were unable to, Kudo. I am sorry. You are trapped here forever.
Oh,
and he starts to
No.
walk away.
wait. In your travels, did you see more crystals like the ones you see growing off of me?
Crystals. Like yours.
Yes, did you see any such things?
Yes, we did, Kudo.
Danno forced these upon me in some mad attempt at power. Perhaps the additional crystals would give me the power to free myself.
You wish for us to bring you these crystals, Kudo.
That is a brilliant idea, Makka, Deathcap.
You seem to have some inkling as to how this crystal technology works, Kudo, yes?
They were forced into my body. I only understand that they hold great power.
You feel great power within you, yes?
Yes. Though I am trapped here. And he kind of like looks up at the cables and everything else.
If this power was placed within you, Kudo, how was it expected to be given or controlled by Danno.
Look around you. Look at his schemes. They come to nothing. He was a fool, full of hubris. How could I possibly hope to know my master's mind? I am the pupil, after all. You guys want some insight checks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nat 20.
This is fucking dog shit.
Yeah, that's where Duncan was at.
Yeah.
And he's getting to the point where he's done fucking around.
Duncan, with your 20, I'm going to give you, because I mean, that's a very good roll in a very important moment. You're currently operating under the assumption that two co-conspirators descended from the clouds. It's also possible that two people ascended and shared the champagne.
And one came back down. If anything, so we found dead guy on throne. And if I'm right in remembering, because I get confused about environment sometimes, we also saw tiny body dead on tiny bed?
No.
In Castle? No, okay.
No, that was clearly Danno's kind of ambassador room.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure. He'd flag the other two over to where he is and just say, this story is an absolute load of dog shite. 2 glasses means 2 people traveled. It does not mean 2 came back down. There's a dead human up there and there's a dead human in here. And Jeremiah sounds like absolute fucking horse shite. That is the person who poisoned all of the storm giants and betrayed Danno. That is the problem.
Do you think that he stole a crystal and then it went wrong?
He is searching for power and he wants the rest of the crystals, which Danno managed to have away from him in the castle. It's just an unfortunate circumstance. It clearly changed his body in a way he's not entirely aware of. If we give him crystals, he's going to turn into a monster. However, due to his crimes, we can take a crystal, and that's fine.
Worth mentioning, he is a crystal.
We could also just take him up and plug him in. I don't think he'd like it, but that's an option.
Makka will...
Would killing him destroy the crystals?
No. It would seem that the crystals are growing off of and out of him. His death would not adversely affect the crystal's current state.
Ita, do you think if we put a sentient being attached to a crystal and plugged him in, would that give him control over the system, or is he just a battery?
There is no way to know.
Based on the lack of controls and the fact that the crystals seem kind of innately powerful, but it would seem, Ida, to you that plugging him in would close the circuit.
Right.
One final thing would be Makka just shouting across the room and saying,
"You there, scientist Jill."
Duncan will go over and ungag Jill. She's the useful one.
What is this for?
And he gestures to Kudo.
What is the purpose of this half man, half crystal?
She says, we weren't entirely able to determine it, but he is highly, highly conductive. The focus crystal, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. He seems to have infused himself with it. He's become one. With all due respect, sir, I believe he has merged with it at this point. Our guess was that he surgically implanted them, or someone surgically implanted the crystals into him in an attempt to be able to harness. And he's like, no, it was done to me. She's like, yeah, in an attempt to harness the abilities. Sylvia had a theory, and I mean, Wesker was all about this, but she thought he was trying to become the storm.
Become a storm? That is ridiculous. Not ridiculous that he might want to do it. I mean, ridiculous that he wanted to do it. I believe he did.
Thank you.
No,
for your
it was done
assistance, Jill.
to me.
He'll just gag Jill, and then Duncan will raise Mr. Bang, and he would like to shoot out the cylinder surrounding Kudo.
Sure. You can just do that. You've got time to line them up. Every time you do, there's kind of like a massive power break, and Jill's like, "Hey, far be it from me to prevent you from doing what you're going to do here. But you understand that this is also the power source for the lighthouse. If he's out, there's nothing left here to guide people. Are you fine with that?
We need him to go up there to start the storm.
That's better than light. You do you. I just wanted to warn you.
Yeah, there's not really a way we can do both, I don't think. If we break him in half, is there enough for it to keep this power in this place?
And she says, she kind of just like gestures to the splatter of Wesker that's kind of still around. She's like, look, our only experience with transmogrification is usually if you break it, it's busted. So you could break him, but I don't think you're getting anything out of him if you do.
Fair enough, then. I guess we're going upstairs. And then he'll just jam a gag or whatever in Kudo's mouth and gesture to Makka and Ida to help him unhook Kudo to carry him upstairs.
Sure. So you...
As Ida's like got him basically has him over her shoulder, she's just saying like, is there a chance that we are punishing an innocent man?
Mm-hmm.
I am not asking you, Kudo.
I cannot, within a reasonable doubt, believe this man is innocent. But I would allow that I am somewhat emotionally involved, so let's consider me the prosecutor and we'll make this official. And he just gestures to set Kudo down, and we'll have ourselves a little trial. Makka, give us the best defense you can for how this man, based on the evidence, could be innocent.
The best defense to prove his innocence. He said he was.
Makka just like kind of looks around at the two of you.
All right. That's the public defender. And allow me to speak as prosecution. This man said he had never been to, I'm going to call it the Sky Realm. He'd never been to the Sky Realm. And yet he knew that it was filled with bodies. He knew there was blue crystals. The only other place we've seen blue crystals is above, continuing the story of this being a lie. I have read the deathbed confessional note of Danno the Mystic, a note read and intended for no one other than his own heart's intention. And it mentions that he was trying to make peace with the giants. He was a Dawnbreaker. He has lied. He had no magical abilities. And everyone I've spoken to, that seems consistent with the last little journey. But he died a good man trying to seek peace, dying on the poison that came from House of Danno things. This man, Kudo, or Jeremiah possibly, has confirmed that he served alongside the House of Danno. We have demonstrable proof that A, he knows things were above. We have 2 glasses of champagne in the travel, which suggested that at least 2 humans had gone above. We have seen humans nowhere else, which would suggest that he is a human involved with the whole thing. And we have the surgical precision of Jill confirming that this was done most likely to himself. And he wants more of them, which would suggest he's the kind of person who would implant them in himself. He also told us not to explore, which would mean that we would not find the deathbed notice of Danno. I believe through all of these things, we can confirm that not only did he betray Danno, he also committed the genocide of the Sky Giants.
Very well. Then we shall have his rebuttal. I just like basically like ungag him. Like I think I still have him like over my shoulder.
Sure.
Just saying, Kudo, why have you lied about so many things?
I've not. I merely seek. And then there's a loud clatter. And you all kind of look over to Jill and Chris. And Chris looks up, like, gently terrified. And you can see that he's been trying to work his bonds against something. Seemed to be a crowbar.
Damn it. Duncan's like, continue trial, I'll listen. And he's going to go down to where Chris is and Jill. And he's just going to take Chris and be like,
I'm sorry, you've shown no remorse and you killed 9 dwarves. Normally, this would be a more drawn out thing, but you're clearly guilty, and I don't believe making you wait makes this any more just. As a Dawnbreaker, I sentence you to death. And he just runs Chris through. And then he'll turn to Jill and say, you were clearly misled. And we spoke with Sylvia. Her only belief was in getting a seat on the board. She cared about nothing else. You've helped. You're clearly troubled by what you've done. Your fate will be decided by the dwarves whom you harmed, because that is just.
And she just kind of stares at you in shock and says, uh-huh. If it helps, I don't think crowbars are supposed to be that shade of blue. Sure enough, the tip of the crowbar is a powdered blue.
And Duncan will reach down and pick it up and say, I fucking told you so. And he'll just throw it up onto the second floor and come up after it and be like, this is the murder weapon for the entire species of sky giants. You'd seen damage. This is covered in crystals. He's covered in crystals. He's the only person who did not arrive here today. He is guilty.
Okay, maybe let's have a think about this. Think of all I can... And like the gag goes in, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
how does the jury rule?
Well, yes. I mean, clearly he is just grasping at straws.
All right, well, as prosecutor and apparently judge, because we're kind of understaffed, I hereby find him guilty and sentence him to be plugged in to end this fucking storm and save everyone below. Let's do this.
and you do. Protesting all the way into the socket.
Is he facing out? I imagine he's like, it's coming at his back. And he just
plug in
like,
so we can see what happens.
He is the crystal. Like his face is stretched across it. So you plug him in, and as soon as you do, his eyes and mouth light up, and he ceases to speak. But in a
so fucking wild.
In an act of, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's an act of pure justice, because the man who ensured that the storms would continue unabated is now responsible for their safe maintenance and for ending them. Having passed judgment on the betrayer of the storm giants and the Danno, the fraud mystic, you're able to power down the storms to a reasonable level. In time, the dwarves will come, Nev will come, and they will determine how to restore the natural systems here. But for now, you have to make your way back to the clinic. Leaving behind Nimbus Station, leaving behind Kudo the pupil and his betrayed master, Danno the mystic, you travel back through a remarkably calm valley. There's a light rain, light winds, but generally speaking, it's rather pleasant. You arrive back to a somber clinic. As Gwendolyn, Nev, and Bleep complete the funeral rites of Doc Malvern. Gwendolyn, what did the funeral look like?
I think I would say it was, we worked together. We dug a pit in like the most scenic place around that we could find, but close to the building. And I think it was just like a really nice way for, I think, both Bleep and Nev to mourn, because they wrapped his body in, a light cloth, and both worked together to put him in, and with their hands, as they spoke words both to Doc Malvern, basically thanking him for his role in their lives. They just shared stories about him until the ground was filled.
Mm-hmm.
And as they returned to the earth,
kind of patted the earth down, Bleep just placed an empty teacup on the atop the mound. At which point, Ita, Makka, and Duncan, beaten, beleaguered, and exhausted,
And Jill.
Yeah, we'll likely say that Jill remained at the station for the dwarves. That all of those actions will happen. You don't need to resolve those. But you return, and you're reunited with Gwendolyn, certainly, and Nev and Bleep. We're gonna skip the you have to tell Laura everything, as Laura, you were there. But what are the major things that you would cover now that you're reunited?
Duncan would share all the details of the case, the people they met, what went down top to bottom. He doesn't feel like there's a whole lot that he needs to hide on the scale of things. I think he'd even tell the Danno story. He wouldn't go too deep into the specifics, just that he didn't have magic. That was his lie that people felt betrayed by, but he'd still bled for the code, which to Duncan actually means more. And that he tried to do this thing and was poisoned, kind of Danno the betrayed as opposed to the betrayer. Otherwise he'd just fill in all the details.
This affects Bleep very deeply. And though he doesn't, magically recover his memories, he does. The name Danno does seem to strike a chord with him, and he nods and says, "I'll look more into this now that we can travel the valley a bit safer. I might be able to learn more." And Nev just kind of puts an arm around him and says, "Yeah, but remember, Doc, whatever you were made for, this is what you do now." And Bleep kind of smiles sadly. After all, it's the first time he's been called Doc. Gwendolyn.
And the thing we know, Bleep, it was confirmed by Kudo amongst the many lies. There was some truth. It was mentioned that you were Danno's familiar. That was your original form. And at the same time, Danno's sole goal was to do good by the people around him and to protect. And you've done that even of your own accord. So live your life. Do the good you want to do. There's no chain around your feet, friend. Those you choose.
And he kind of smiles, and you'll just reach out with a little monkey's paw, and he'll tap on Danno's coppers, and he'll look kind of knowingly at you and say, "You too." Gwendolyn, obviously, I think it's safe to say you would catch them up on what occurred. Is there anything in particular you would want to impart to them, or is a lot of that just kind of internal for you?
No, I think she would address Duncan specifically, not leaving out the others, but just to Duncan. Say, Duncan, you've been telling me for a while that I need to be careful when I'm talking about the alliance, and I can't make promises for everyone. And I'm not gonna lie, it hadn't really hit home until I just had a really nice couple chats with Doc Malvin before he passed. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think I need to learn more about the people of Gren and what the most vulnerable of them is suffering from, and how the Alliance, if it's going to work, can help them. Because if it doesn't, then they're basically going to get squashed.
That sounds like a noble goal. Let me ask, did you find a party of dwarves?
And Nev just kind of laughs and says, "Oh yeah, rode in on some crazy horses, wild horses. just thundering in. They're resting up.
Interesting. Well, one of the problems we've learned that may be facing the people of Gren is famine. And we may have a possible solution that would require more study and care. So there may be good you can do this day, both with your alliance and otherwise.
And Nev kind of gives you a look and he says, famine? I mean, that's nothing I've ever heard of, but yeah, I guess we could ask the dwarves. In checking with the dwarves, they too have heard no stories of famine. In fact, food seems fairly plentiful.
I hate Sylvia Gnome.
Yeah,
So
Ida just
much
throws
on
up
the
her
scale of
hands.
things.
It's like lies within deception and corruption, and she just like kind of walks away with like her hands up.
Okay, I
Sure.
have to admit, she's growing on me, Duncan says, just pointing at her as she runs away yelling about corruption.
Sure. Ed will say, I mean, all the trade that comes through Bleen keeps us, with respect, Mr. Tortle, keeps us pretty well fed, but...
fucking then we got some bad news about Bleen, because it turns out it's been taken over by an insane goddess and they're all zombie monsters. How's
Wow.
food without Bleen? He just asks, resting his head in his hands.
it's like, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Apex has offered food delivery for the first time, which is a little surprising to us. It's not really what we think of from the tech guys, but yeah, I mean, we're trading with them anyway. I guess we just get our food there.
Apex was promising this food, so fun experiments for the rest of us. Shit.
Oh, so they were promising food that they didn't have yet.
Yeah, that's how business works. Welcome back. So you could just yell corruption again. It's actually the perfect word to describe this whole process. This is technically fraud. All right, so here's the thing. Apex thought they could use the storms here to essentially reflood the ashlands and make them into functional land. Now, Sylvia was a psychopath and no one could work with her. There is one scientist who survived our assault who has shown remorse, and her fate is ultimately in your hands in the name of justice. But if you wanted someone to work with you to perhaps see if you could find a way to make that land fertile again and to be able to help distribute the food to the people who need it, this place is unclaimed and someone needs to do that work. And we don't understand fuck all about this technology.
He kind of nods and Nev says, hey, look, I'm more the punchy guy than the ideas guy, but if you got the storms under control, we can grow food here. Now that things aren't going to get flooded out anymore, if we know what's happening. I mean, Doc used to talk about it, what this place used to be back in the day. We could just make that happen again. But again, and just holds up his hands, he's like, troll hands. So we might need your help if we're going to build that up. And generally they get to talking, and like you can tell that conversation's kind of spinning up. That the dwarves obviously need to touch base with Fortress Martigrau to determine next steps. But it sounds like the food problem may be solved sooner and more locally than you'd expect.
Good. Duncan would get them, if possible, to swear an oath that they would provide food to people who need it, no matter the political circumstance, because the last thing you'd want to do is just install a new series of tyrants over Food Island.
Nev stands over your shoulder and just quietly cracks his knuckles to confirm that, yes, like, swear this oath and this is what happens, or the unkillable troll comes for you. But they all seem agreeable to that. I mean, again, the dwarves of Martigrau weren't... They were just, trying to provide power, and realistically, they're going to want to try and get that up and running again. It'll be different now, obviously, but yeah, they all seem on side.
Great. Duncan would then turn to Nev and say, Nev, clearly you are a warrior of great strength, personal persuasion, heart, and morality. This is not a requirement, but you would make a fantastic Dawnbreaker. And it would give you the right to summon us if there was any problem on this isle or anywhere else where you had seen injustice being enacted.
And he kind of gets a little bit bashful. He says, oh, hell, I mean, kind of been a lone wolf my whole career, but you seem like good folks. I mean, from the sounds of things, the turtle guy, he made all those horses and got all these dwarves home safe. And if that's what Dawnbreakers do, sign me up, man. Also, admittedly, it'd be a lot easier to just, summon you for good reason than have to drag you out of the ocean again,
Exactly. I feel the same way. So I would like to spend an imaginary point of strain, Tom, and say that Duncan kept his coppers.
Sure, that makes sense.
And he would take Nev out and Bleep if Bleep wanted to swear the oaths, because Bleep also seems more like a Nev thing.
Bleep's sworn an oath to medicine. He can't.
Fair enough. Oath. I mean, we would allow it. You just take out the blade oath, and then otherwise it's just doing justice. But no, Nev's right. He would take Nev. We don't need to do the scene, but take Nev somewhere, swear the oaths, and bestow his coppers upon Nev. So he'll redeem Danno's. And
Nev kind of manages to clasp them around one forearm because they're too small.
Yep.
So he gets one.
Perfect.
But he puts it on his punching wrist. So
and just out of my curiosity, which of the names of the code would Nev choose, or would Nev want Duncan to assign?
Nev would swear to Danno. You're the one he knows, and based on what you've described, also Danno's connection to his partner, I think he feels obliged to help your quest to redeem the name, so that the Bleep's in a roundabout way father can be redeemed.
Right, and he would swear it instead of to Danno the Mystic, it would be to Danno the Betrayed. That's how it would be known moving forward.
Cool. Awesome. Makka, is there anything you want to do before you carry on?
I don't think so. I think the lies and deception kind of at play by those who wanted power for themselves. I think someone even had to explain to Makka some of these lies about they're not actually being a famine and stuff like that, because they're just he doesn't understand why someone would lie about that. But then to have it basically be it was only for a seat on the board, basically. And Kudo only wanted to have the power of the crystals within him to wield and for his own or to become the storm kind of thing. So I think he's on top of physically, he is just all peopled out right now because no one says what they mean, and everyone's little crusade gets in the way of everyone else getting on with their lives. And so Makka is very much looking forward to that next step to getting to Orville and getting the untainted Glamora. He's I think quite withdrawn for these times, these moments.
Gotcha. Okay. So having sorted all of that and learned a little bit more about Apex, Ita, you've certainly got some insight into the world. You have some more information about what might be going on with Apex's goals.
Corruption.
Yeah. You've assisted the remaining dwarves of Fortress Mautegrad, kind of paying your debt to Kegstan Kelly. You've ended the scientific career of Sylvia Tome, the science gnome. You have
quote unquote scientific.
Quote unquote science. And more importantly, you've restored balance to the valley. And perhaps most importantly of all, Gwendolyn, you have learned that while the broad strokes of nationhood and leadership are important, you can't seek to enter into any real leadership role in this world without understanding it. And so you've decided to try and learn the world a bit better. No one here has heard of a famine. That's not to say there isn't. It does seem like there probably isn't yet. There may be. But obviously Sylvia was very good at using whatever she could, even if it's a soon problem, to be a now problem. But with the way through the valley now clear for the first time in hundreds of years, you're able to continue on unabated. You say your goodbyes to Nev, Bleep, the dwarves. They do pardon Jill. Admittedly, a lot of the Stars team, there are a few true believers amongst them, folks like Chris, Wesker, a few others. But a lot of them just believed in Sylvia And when that lie has been disproved, it's easy to understand why someone would follow. Also, it does come out that Sylvia herself, after seducing Kelly, was the one who personally rigged up the place to blow. So really, the full responsibility falls on her. She just couldn't help it. She had a chance to do science, and she wanted to. You gather your things, you say your farewells, and you begin sort of the long march west. It's strange.
Ryan, I have one question, Tom. Just because it got mentioned at the beginning, my brain can't let things go because secretly I'm an 8-year-old. Did we find any loot?
You did not.
I hate this fucking tower. All we found was lies.
Unfortunately, the loot that you could have taken from the tower itself was actually pretty innocuous. The reason it was sealed was simply because there was no longer power running to it. Once you got in, it was a tourist center. So sadly, not the promised land at all, merely a functional place. The real treasure was the ability to control storms and discovering the fate of the storm giants. That said, there will be some bonuses from the dwarves and other things that I will give you next session because I need to calculate them up. But Brian, just to fit your 8-year-old brain, one of the things you get is a bit more of your precious spider weave, whatever the fuck.
Yay! Spider iron silk? What the fuck?
We haven't had some in a while.
Iron silk. I have been almost asking about it every location, but I've held it in, so I'm very happy.
You get enough.
Duncan is an adult. I am not.
Yeah, you get enough to properly make a vest of it. So you can give yourself +1 armor.
Fuck yes!
See
okay, everybody else asks for presents.
Oh my God.
But I'll sort out the rest of you later because that was the only one I knew for sure.
You have the unconditional love of Jossie in that bag of goodies.
I have love of a Jossie. But yes, the dwarves spent some time with you crafting that as a thank you for your services. Gwendolyn, you were pleased to discover that the Elos blade is restored.
Oh, that's nice.
There's a bit of a shimmer to it that wasn't there before. You're not sure whether it's a trick of the light or something more nefarious, but you could swear that as you turn it over, it's almost gleaming now. You could swear that occasionally on the edge of the blade you see a thin smile.
She kind of looks at him like, "Don't fuck this up, Aesop. Don't."
The blade says and does nothing because it can't, because it's a blade. But that in and of itself, very reassuring. And with that, you pack up and begin your trek. You travel again. It's strange moving through the valley now, but already with less rain, you can see more of these sort of clamshells where things are growing, and you see more of the Danno stuff. And sure enough, yes, some of it is very, very clearly like tourist trap garbage. But there are potions, as you saw before, healing potions, stamina potions, various things that now have rotted or have broken, but that clearly would have provided some minor amounts of succor at the very least. You do find a long way out an orc with a name tag that reads Jeremiah, but he clearly had been camping in this clamshell and died of bolt damage some time ago. So, as in most lies, a bit of truth, but definitely not a human. He did manage to plant a hell of a garden, though, so at least some part of him lives on.
So, Tom, what potions did I get?
You can take a
Ryan got his iron silk. I want something.
Sure. You know what? You can have yourself an overripe healing potion.
Yes.
When you use it, you can roll a dice. On a 1 to 3, you get D8 health back. On a 4 to 6, you get a D4.
Was
equivalent, no question.
Overripe. Oh, wait, let me write this down. Overripe potion of healing.
Right. I think, Ida, you look at it and there's just that like narrowed eyes of like, I don't know that I trust this, but it did help earlier, so I'm going to keep it. So you belt it and you carry on. And after some trudging through the mud, you make it out. Makka, this whole little hike is actually fairly refreshing for you. You're surrounded by lush greenery, by the smells of essentially swamp to a large extent. And it's nice to just kind of experience that again. It has been some time. You travel for another day, heading west towards Apex, towards the Empire, towards the Ashlands. And it's at the end of that second day that, tired now and having been on the road for a bit, you see a sort of a campfire smoke rising above the trees. And as you sort of make your way up cautiously, you see a crudely constructed cart. And that seems to be just stacked with what look like books that have been kind of like tied down under a tarp. And you hear songs. And Gwendolyn, this is an odd moment for you because, and actually Duncan for you as well, because you recognize it as a common Orwellian drinking song. And as you draw closer, you see the telltale glint of coppers. And as you draw within eyeshot, a tall man, kind of a Lance Reddick-looking fellow with long blonde hair, turns and raises a gauntleted arm and just says, "Greetings. I'm Hadrian Kin Elos, first of the Dawnbreakers. Why do you have the armor of a Malakin Solaris?" And then his eyes kind of go wide and he says, "Princess?"
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hamstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crown's artwork was created by the brilliant Del Borovic. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum-Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time. The Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, Richard Cranium, Sammy Boy, Orion Birchfield, Scott Garland, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Logan, Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, Roman Brown, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.